Hello and welcome to your Production Possibility Frontier or your Production Possibility Curve lecture. In this lecture I'm going to talk about some different points on a PPC and explain what those mean and explain how this curve can change and talk about opportunity costs. So first let's talk about the concept of a PPC itself. The Production Possibility Curve is something that it's a model that exists in the world of economics. It's not 100% realistic. So in this situation, we're assuming that in this economy, only televisions and computers are produced. So all the natural resources that exist work towards creating televisions or computers. So if you look at this production possibility curve, we're going to be looking at the opportunity cost of a changing curve. So if you produce more televisions or more computers, we'll be able to measure the opportunity cost. This production possibility curve is an increasing cost because it is bowed out, and so it has that kind of half circle look. If it were constant cost, it would be a straight line from one axis to the other. So in this case, we have all of our resources and they're working, like I said, towards producing televisions or computers. So if you use all of your resources and you produce televisions, how many can you produce? Well, you produce 41. And how many computers? That would be 0. If you use all your resources just to produce computers, you would produce 14 computers and 0 televisions. If you produce anywhere on this curve, so if I move point A anywhere onto this curve, that means that you are producing to the best of your economy's ability. So it doesn't matter if it's here, it doesn't matter if it's here. As long as you're somewhere on this curve, that means you're using all of your resources. So in this case, let's move point A there. That means that you're producing 12 computers and 11 televisions. Let's say that we want to produce more televisions. So you move to 20. Okay, what's the opportunity cost? Well, you were here, right, at 12, and now we shifted up, so now you're producing 20 televisions instead of 11. What's the opportunity cost? It's this difference right here, 12 minus 10. So the opportunity cost is 2. So you can actually measure that opportunity cost of now producing more televisions. And then as an economy, you have to determine if that's most efficient for you and if that's something that you should do. This is also connected to trade, and we'll talk about that in another unit or at another time. So again, any point on here, it doesn't matter if it's here, doesn't matter if it's here or here, it means that you're using all your resources and you're producing efficiently. What happens if you're inside point, if you're at point A inside the curve? That means that you're not using your resources to the best of their ability. Usually this indicates that there's a recession. So it means that you can be using land, labor, or capital up here, but maybe there's a recession and so unemployment rates are high and therefore you're producing somewhere in here. It could also be because maybe there was some sort of issue at a plant or something like that, and so you're not able to use all your resources, so you're in here. Well, what does it mean if you're producing outside at point B? Well, you can't get to this point unless you have pretty much a change in technology, you find new resources, so there's a new discovery of an element that you need, an input that you need to produce more televisions or more computers, or all of a sudden you find that you have a lot more labor. So maybe immigration laws change and all of a sudden you have more labor. So point B can only be reached if something new happens. So again, you have more labor, you found more natural resources, or there's been a change in technology. And then you would draw a whole new curve right here. So this would be a shift out. We would say that the curve would shift out to point B because it's a permanent change. If you're moving, that means a temporary change. So shift indicates a permanent change in economics. Movement indicates temporary. So in other words, if we were saying that that unemployment rates have drastically decreased, and demonstrate that on the PPC, that would mean that if unemployment rates were really high, that means that you were probably functioning in here because there was a recession. And so then if unemployment rates lower, that means you're going to move back out so that you're producing where you should. Let's say that there's been a huge natural disaster and a ton of resources are permanently wiped out. That means that you probably would then see a shift. It doesn't happen very often, but we would say, okay, then point A is your new curve. You shifted in because you just lost a ton of natural resources over the long run, not a short temporary sort of thing, but like your natural resources have been wiped out, so you would shift. Okay, so movement is more temporary, moving back out to this line because you see lower unemployment rates or higher unemployment rates, or there's been a recession or something like that. You would move in temporarily. You'd move in temporarily from this curve. So again, understanding those terms, movement versus shift, is really important. And also remember that you can actually measure this opportunity cost as well. And even though this is an increasing cost, that means that the comparative advantage or the opportunity cost that you're going to see in trying to determine comparative advantage is going to vary, because with this increasing cost, it changes. With constant cost, if it were a straight line across here, the opportunity cost would be exactly the same. And you can see in this PPC here how it is constant cost. It's that straight line. So if you're producing 8 bushels of corn, you are producing 1 bushel of soybeans. If you decide to increase your bushel of soybeans to 2 units, you're now producing 8 bushels of corn, and so your opportunity cost was 1 bushel. And you can see that that constant cost, it's the exact same. So when you shift from 2 bushels of soybeans to 3, the opportunity cost is 1, because 7 minus 6. So again, it's easier to determine those the comparative and absolute advantage when you're looking at an increasing cost, as opposed to, or I'm sorry, when you're looking at a constant cost as opposed to an increasing cost. And so you can start thinking of it in terms of what you give up to produce 1 more unit of an item. So for example, if you produce 1 more apple, you give up 1 orange. This is constant cost. If you produce 1 more apple here, 2, again, you give up 1 orange. If you produce 1 more apple, you give up 1 orange. So you can see that the opportunity cost is constant. So when you produce 1 more, you give up 1, and it's constant. So hopefully this cleared up some of the terminology and was helpful as kind of an introduction to the PPC curve. Let me know if you have any questions. Again, my office hours are on Tuesdays in the Social Studies Academic Help Center. So you get to that by going to the Idaho Live tab on the left side of your screen. You click in there, and then it'll take you to the Social Studies Academic Help Center. So I'm in there for a couple of hours every Tuesday if you want to come with questions. You can also email me with questions, and I always get back to you within 24 hours, usually sooner than that. But let me know the second that you have a question or if something doesn't make sense. And remember that I try and grade every assignment that comes to me with feedback. So there are some assignments that the computer automatically grades. And if you get a 70% or below, then I'll leave comments on that. Otherwise, you won't see comments. And so if you do have a question on a specific multiple choice problem, just let me know, and I'm happy to answer that for you. But like I said, in general, I try and leave comments on all of the assignments that I actually grade myself as much as possible. So it's good if you want to read that feedback and then try something again. Remember, you can redo anything in this class. The most important thing is that you understand it and that you learn it, and ultimately that will So hopefully this was helpful, and thanks for listening.